welcome to SunnyRedemption Sailing, your bi-weekly-ish voyage for BS3 gaming news. Did you manage to get to see Toy Story over the long weekend?
Yes, I saw it a few days ago.
And?
I might be going to see it again with my mom.
Well, okay.
And my mom suddenly is like, "Oh, I want to see it," even though I don't think she's seen 3 and 4, but whatever.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty good. I don't really need it to exist. Pretty much everything past 2, I didn't really need to exist. Maybe 3, I guess, for some sort of closure, if that's how they were going to have ended it.
Hey, that's my college movie.
Yeah,
so
I feel
don't
like
diss it. Just kidding.
Those movies all came out when I was like an adult, so I'm not like rewatching them and wearing out a VHS of them. I have those first 2 movies memorized, and I saw 3 and was like, okay, that was a great ending to this series. And then they made 4, which I thought was like an unnecessary continuation, but whatever. It could have been a lot worse. It could have just been, some low rent cash in, and it wasn't that. It was
Toy Story 2 almost was. It almost was direct to video.
Yeah.
And 3 was almost too.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that this franchise could be run into the ground a lot worse. And like having 5 movies that I think are all of at least decent quality, that's about as good as I could ask for, I guess. I had a great time with it. I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
You've got a spoiler in me. Do.
Mainly the like Jesse stuff could have been done a lot worse. I think it's something where like I didn't really need it expanded upon. Those scenes in Toy Story 2 with Jessie and her owner used a lot to your imagination, which I think was good. And I didn't necessarily need them to like get all detailed about it, but I understand that's kind of just how things work when you get this far into a movie franchise. You have to go back and reference every little thing from the past. So I think it could have been a lot worse, but it's still not something I necessarily needed them to expand on. I think they did a decent job tying it in and making it make sense to have Jesse have a big role.
Yeah, and for Buzz to have a bit more to do this time around instead of being
Buzz was like
idiot.
He was like a non-entity in Toy Story 4, so it's nice that they focus on different characters this time.
But speaking of different characters, it's so annoying how they leave the rest of Andy's cast pretty much in the lurch.
The thing is, like, you have to remember, these movies have been going for 30 years. Don Rickles is dead. Jim Varney is dead. Like, a lot of the voice actors from some of the prominent characters. Like, sure, they do still have voice lines, and obviously they recast them at some point, but you're not going to find, like, someone with a personality and exact voice match of a Jim Varney or a Don Rickles. So
then get rid of these characters somehow, gracefully. I don't know.
I think that's probably part of the reason why they're not very prominent. Like, they have a few kind of token lines that they have in these past few movies.
Yeah.
You're just going to get your normal, little one-liners from Slinky Dog and Ham and whatever.
That's all very fair. I'm just a very strict Chekhovist. That, like, if you have an element there, you got to use it.
The friends I went to see Toy Story with, we're trying to make plans to basically see a new movie every weekend that I'm off, at least, because that's the only times we can make it work. So we're kind of like, okay, next movie is probably going to be Disclosure Day before that's out of theaters, or possibly Supergirl. We're kind of still weighing our options there.
Supergirl, okay, I did see that before Disclosure Day. It was mid. Like it was fine. It was if all you want is just to turn off your brain and see superhero action in a reheated Guardians of the Galaxy format, but with a Kryptonian who can punch her way out of problems, except for when the plot conveniently disables her powers, then fine, I guess. But Woman of Tomorrow appears to have been a lot better than that, and it's very disappointing. Still, Disclosure Day, it's not Spielberg's best, but this is the man who got me into stories in general, with Jurassic Park, with E.T., and he still has some of that magic. I actually teared up at points.
Yeah, I mean, Spielberg, like, he's still putting out great stuff. Like, he really hasn't lost it in the way that a lot of other directors have in their latter days.
He's not on top of the world like he used to be during the duology of Jurassic Park and Schindler's List, or of Minority Report and
Yeah, but
AI.
like the last new Spielberg I saw that I was like, oh my god, this is actually like one of his best films with The Fabelmans. I thought that was like, oh my god, he
Oh
still got
yeah,
it. Wow.
yeah. I
And
mean,
so yeah,
a lot of it is because he got his sister to fact check.
yeah.
That would be something my sister would do if I ever made a biopic of myself. So Disclosure Day is really very strongly carried by the performances. It does have some unique themes, or at least a unique way to tackle this theme, but it just hammers it on the nose a little bit. It's fine, and the ending in particular will be very divisive. I can already guess that you'll probably be fine with it because you're not as
Okay.
much of a strict plot constructionist as some. For those who are, I completely understand that perspective because basically fridge logic took over almost immediately after leaving the theater. However,
Okay.
fridge logic is just that. It's cold after you've already had the good time. It still is sitting with me in good ways too, such as
Mhm.
what is humanity's nature and relationship to the truth. And in that regard, it really nails it. Again, I think the plot construction difficulties definitely drag it down. Emily Blunt was the only really big performance of the movie for me. It was probably one of her best ones since A Quiet Place. Her best
Okay.
performances. Not that she wasn't good in Devil Wears Prada too, but her character was very flat, and she made the most of it. So, I think that she was great here in a way that she
Mhm.
hasn't been in a while. I would recommend Disclosure Day for sure.
It's that Supergirl, and then we realized both the Odyssey and Spider-Man are coming out very soon too. So
Oh
it's like
yeah, you're gonna have to
we
let
might
me
have to do
know
some.
how Spider-Man is because I'm not seeing it in theaters. And if I do see it, it will not be in a movie theater. That's all I'll say about that.
I've seen every Spider-Man in theaters. Why stop now? I
That's
guess
true. And then the
I'm
Odyssey,
not
I'll
even.
see it because I have a pass, but I'm
Yeah,
going in with lower expectations.
yeah. Nolan's very hit or miss for me. Like I really didn't care for Tenet. Got what it
On
was going for. I tried my best with it. That is all I'll say.
Tenet was
But I
unhearable garbage that had a plot that made no sense, even with subtitles on.
I thought that Oppenheimer was fantastic, and
Yes, I
I
saw
think
that with my
he's like
dad, and that
he's
was awesome.
mostly hit. He's mostly hit for me, but yeah, there have been the occasional misses. So I don't know. Like I have decently high hopes for the Odyssey. I'm definitely gonna try to see it.
Even his
Like
misses are relatively better than some other directors' highs. Like,
yeah,
I get why people rate Dunkirk a little lower because it is a little bit jarring to have scenes of very empty looking beaches, and a few CGI extras probably wouldn't have gone amiss. But I appreciate his dedication to the craft and don't really get the criticism of the nuclear explosion in Oppenheimer, for instance, because I thought that looked freaking awesome. Was it accurate? No, but it was a huge ass explosion made in camera, so
yeah,
I was happy. So yeah, that's the end of the good news, unfortunately, in
yeah.
entertainment this week. Um,
At least the movie industry is doing interesting things in a good
yeah,
way.
I picked
Yeah.
up Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. I
Oh,
still think this game has the best water of this generation, but this is a very close second. Like,
okay.
it is shimmering, it's got depth, the underwater swimming is really cool, and the combat sucks, but I'm still really enjoying it. It sucks in a
Yeah.
new, interesting way, at least. It's
Yeah.
like trying to be both like the original game and like the more modern formula that they worked on after Origins.
Yeah.
It works okay, but sometimes it's just very hard to understand when you're actually blocking an enemy, if that makes any sense. Because I think I have to hit it when the blue glint actually appears, not when the person is actually swinging their arm forward to strike.
Hmm.
However, the things that it really needed to impress me on, the graphics, the frame rate, and the world and textures, just knocked it out of the park for me. Absolutely happy I have it on a disc,
Mhm.
Sony. But we'll get to that. We'll fucking get to them. In other good gaming related news, I beat Abyssus.
So real quick, before you get deep into the Abyssus stuff, I did play a little bit of it. Not a ton.
Yeah, I
And I
won't go
like
into
it so far.
spoilers or
Yeah.
anything.
Grand total of 45 minutes. Like 2 runs, basically.
I have completed 3 expeditions now, and it definitely gets shorter than that once you know what you're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's roguelike 101, etc. But, as I mentioned before, the combinations are really creative between status effects and weapons and
Yeah.
secondaries and abilities.
Yeah, I wasn't even getting that deep into that, but I did my second run. I did get like some really cool like lightning abilities and stuff. So
Oh
I
yeah,
started
lightning
to
is
see how that
OP
stuff.
as fuck. I
Yeah,
beat the
I
game with the lightning gun, as well as a lightning circle secondary that just created a constant thunderstorm in a particular area.
I got it upgraded to a point in the one run I had it where I was just like chaining lightning with every secondary fire or something like
Oh
that. It was
yes, I
pretty nuts.
love
Yeah,
that shit so much.
yeah,
Oh, and my turrets fly now.
oh
That was a huge part of how I beat the final boss, was just having flying turrets following me everywhere. One of my big criticisms with the boss fights is that a lot of times you have a lot of area effects being thrown at you.
I did the first proper boss. Well, I got to it on my second run, but and almost had it down, but I just like wasn't quite doing well enough with my health management.
Ah, well, let me see
I think
how many
next,
hours I've played this game while you talk.
yeah, I think next run I do, I'll probably have it. I it was my first time seeing it, so I didn't quite
Yeah, that's how
know
that
what was going
goes.
on. Yep.
I've put 33 hours into this game.
Oh wow.
With my help, it'll definitely be a lot shorter for you to get the final boss. But that was just to win a few times with one weapon. I'm
Yeah.
excited to do depth level +1 with the shotgun
Mhm.
because it'll be an amazing automatic beast. I know it. Just going back to the ship with fireworks.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, where I'm at, I found like 3 pieces of loot. I'm near where I'm probably going to dig up the treasure.
Okay, cool. I'll
So if
help
you're
out
able
in a
to,
second. Once I get
yep.
some food, because I'm barely alive. And that seems to be where Sony's goodwill is too, because they are killing physical discs next gen.
Yeah, it's not necessarily unexpected. I guess they kind of have to like say something like pretty early about this rather than blindside people like and say, "Oh, by the way, we're ending production in a month" or something like that. Well, I don't know. I kind of thought we had a little bit more runway on discs, or even just making it a more boutique thing, but still an option. It's crazy to me that they're just cutting it off
Yeah,
right here.
everybody thought we'd have another generation with physical media because
Yeah,
they lulled
even
us into a false
even
sense of security.
even if Sony's going first and taking the heat for it now, at this point, I don't really see a world where Xbox doesn't follow suit with this. I'll be pleasantly surprised if they don't. If they wanted to get out here and have a huge PR win, they could just come out and say, "Hey, by the way, we're going to have discs as an option on Helix." The fact that they didn't, I think, speaks volumes about what they're planning. Sony just
Next
bearing
gen.
the brunt of this particular PR nightmare because they decided to kind of just go out first with it for probably plenty of logistical reasons. They want to just get it done with now so that when 2028 comes, people will have accepted it by then, I guess.
I think that the main reason for why Sony is announcing this early is that it takes a while to shut down a disc production factory, and people would have noticed that they started doing it on the sly. They
Yeah.
currently produce 600,000 PS5 and PS4 discs a day. They're
Yeah.
aiming to get
Like
that down to
there's
6,000 by 2027. So there's not going to be a lot of physical releases next year anyway. This is Sony
yeah.
DADC in Austria, and they are shifting to micro lenses, which use a lot of the same optical imaging technology as discs for a lot higher of a profit margin because Sony also has a camera business that does pretty well. They
Yeah.
sell DSLR lenses for phones,
Mhm.
and so it makes MBA sense. The cold robotic logic that has zero fucking empathy
Yeah.
for anything
I mean,
and anyone that
I
isn't you on
I'm
a
sure
balance sheet.
yeah, I'm sure every single company has just been waiting for the line to cross, on the sheet saying like, okay, this is the time where discs become a niche enough thing that we can try to just wrest control of this, wall everything up.
That's if the governments of the world don't take notice. And like Bernie Sanders was talking about this.
Yeah.
Once you start upsetting people like Trevor Noah, because literally their entire brand was founded on discs. I watched a 3-minute video about how the famous black CDs were made. This was Sony's whole deal, was taking control of their destiny by going from just making a CD-based add-on for the Super Nintendo to making their own console and changing the way that games could be made forever. The only reason that they have Final Fantasy VII at all to keep reselling us is because Final Fantasy went over to the PlayStation because they use CDs. So, it then becomes a matter of realizing that none of that was ever really worth anything. And that sucks for a lot of PlayStation fans, I'm sure. I'm a bit ahead of the curve because I boycotted Sony 2 years ago over their fucking AI voice acting bullshit. Well, that and also my PS5's thermal paste melted. So it's pretty plain to see that they've been a greedy ass company for a while now. They just want to raise prices on everything. And if they are allowed to go through with this by governments, then they will have a monopoly. And what will happen after that point is that a good chunk of sales from the PS5 generation will fall off. There are people who have already canceled their PlayStation Plus subscriptions in protest. According to one gaming analyst, Sony planned for this and thinks that it's small enough that they don't have to care, that they're too big to fail. And that's what fucking drives me up a wall about all this. What I wanted was for Xbox to become as viable of a competitor as possible, so that Sony wouldn't pull bullshit like this, so that they wouldn't feel so comfortable as the market leader that they could feel like they could get away with ripping people off. Because digital sales are completely arbitrary. There is no inherent value to these ones and zeros. As I mentioned last time, you don't really own disc games either. It's just a resell of a license. Because honestly, that's what PS5 discs have been for a while, is download keys to finish the rest of the game on the server. It's just like, can we not have this right now? But now I'm just dealing with it. I felt depressed for a whole day after the announcement, honestly.
It doesn't feel like it should be just this line in the sand cutoff. Like
exactly.
It just feels like even if physical is a shrinking market, it's not going to shrink into nothing without Sony or Microsoft cutting it off. Like it's still, I think there's still always going to be a segment of people wanting to engage with physical games, even if it's not the dominant means that people are. There's still going to be a contingent of people who want to have that secondary marketplace and buy, sell, trade stuff. It's in Sony's best interest in a money-making sense. They're like, oh, well, if we take away that, then we just get control of everything. They've already halfway done that by limiting digital code
yes,
stuff.
That was the settlement that they had, if you recall, that I told you about, where they paid out basically some PlayStation gift cards and called it a day. So that was the last time that government tried to seriously rein them in. But there are more lawsuits happening in the UK and Netherlands right now. So we'll see how that goes.
I don't think any of these lawsuits and things are going to be like some silver bullet that magically stops them from doing this. If they want to make a digital only PS6, I don't think that's something that's just going to be stopped.
I mean, if there were laws in the EU around that, then they would, but they would make an EU only version of the PS6, or just a single add-on disk drive that is locked to European.
No matter what was going to happen with discs in this next generation, I wasn't expecting any of them to have a built-in disk drive. all I really want is like an add-on. I don't even care if I have to pay more, even if I'm buying mostly digital in the past decade. I have enough discs around, older discs around, even for like PS4 games. I don't want to just lose that. And I don't think that the thing that people are saying Xbox is working on with a disc to digital program, I'm not into that either because that's still stifling the whole third party marketplace for physical
Well,
items.
there are some bits of good news here. Well, less shitty. Sony will reprint discs that were made before 2028, at least for now.
Yeah.
Though it's still kind of bullshit that, well, A, there's an exploding barrel heading right towards me. and B, that that was the exploding barrel exploding,
Okay.
naturally, from me shooting it. So we're not being attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so before I was so rudely interrupted. Okay, yeah. It's just so rude of Sony to not inform practically anybody about this. Not to give
Yeah.
people time. At least mousepi got some based points by posting a picture of their upcoming physical disc for the PS5. They also have a cartridge for Switch 2, and that's rather unremarkable, and nothing for Xbox because of the minimum print run bullshit.
Yeah.
But it was still notable that they posted the PS5 version of their game and clarified that the version of the game that is 1.0 will play perfectly fine on an offline PS5. There are quality of life fixes naturally with the update, but they have a fully playable game. Doesitplay.com is a great resource for people who will want to collect these games now, as they're going to be a scarcer resource.
Yeah, exactly. And like as games go forward, there are already games from the 360 PS3 generations that were essentially online only that are pointless to even buy the
As we
disc
found
other
out
than
the
the
hard
novelty
way
value.
with
Yeah.
Dead or Alive 5, I believe you said.
Yes, Dead or
Ouch.
Alive 5 last round literally boots you to title screen, says server not found, and that's it.
Ugh.
I tried playing offline and got the same result. So
Well,
like there's already games in the past 10, 15 years that have succumbed to that are on discs, and I think it's only going to get more and more prominent. If you think about the PS4, Xbox One, those are nearly 13 years old. There are people starting to probably collect those in a more retro sense.
that reminds
And
me that somebody actually bought an Xbox One at the GameStop that I was at today. They were a bit confused about the difference between the 360 and One, but had One games. So I think that it was more like there were specific 360 games that they were wanting to play, and they were just wondering if the GameStop employees knew which ones, and like get a console for herself because maybe they had played it at a friend's house or something. I don't know their situation, but they recommended Mortal Kombat XL for $10, and the woman walked
yeah,
away with $126 of perfectly good refurbished Xbox One. Like, it was a gorgeous white, actually. People love to
yep.
give GameStop a lot of flack, and you know what? If they go under, it'll suck for the people who lose their jobs, but I won't. Loyalty, quote unquote, to a brand other than just it surviving so that art can be made is foolish, because these companies are not your friends. They just see you as numbers on a spreadsheet, is
Oh,
what
by the way,
one
can we
analyst said. Oh, cancel
real
this?
quick so we can get can we cancel this one because we're not going to have time to finish this one. I'm just going to put
Oh.
down a shorter one.
Oh, I thought it was one of the shorter ones, but hey, that's fine.
No, the
Still,
Legend Voyages we had like two more big things to do on that one. I just want to do like a single goal voyage.
Okay, sounds good.
Let me see. Let's just do a treasure one. Those are pretty quick.
Sounds like a plan.
There we go.
The other bit of good news comes from the
I put it
Xbox
down.
side, because their main disc factory is in Mexico. And we would be hearing about that getting shut down if it was happening by 2028. I think they'll still continue to make discs, but I don't think they'll continue to make disk drives for Helix. What I think will happen, because it is a PC, is that they'll say, hey, here's a bundle with this third-party disk drive maker, and go nuts, or bring your own.
Yeah,
And
that would at least be a solution.
yeah, because I'm
And I
so
guess
angry about why Sony didn't say, like, well, there is going to be a disc to digital program,
yeah,
or a bespoke disk drive, or something like that.
I mean, maybe it's too early for them to like want to get out there and say that. Maybe that's something they'll kind of
That seems like
have
it's
out
pretty
there.
important to have out there
Yeah,
to blunt the backlash.
I mean,
But maybe they're
maybe
hoping time will do that.
yeah, or maybe they're just kind of like, the positives from this can be gained at another time. Maybe they're like, hey, we can get a little win off of this in the future. We'll take the hit now, and like once we have more concrete, you know, plans to announce about some sort of external drive for legacy PS4 and PS5 games. This is all working off the assumption that they are going to be continuing like compatibility all the way back to PS4, which I guess isn't a total given. It would be smart for them to do so from a like just business standpoint, just continue
Well,
selling those games, but
the
I don't know.
problem is that they did not typically value backwards compatibility very highly in the past.
When we're talking backwards compatibility, though, we're talking about systems that were mainly, disc based up to the PS3, and then now you have people PS4 onwards with massive digital libraries. I think that's a slightly different case than like, oh, they didn't get the PS3 disc based games working, but that's fine. No big loss from their perspective. When they're entrenched in like your ecosystem digitally, I think that just feels a bit different for people where it's like, well, I have all my games here. I can't just sell them like you could with physical. So I
This is
think the
true.
backwards compatibility from PS4 onward is a little bit different.
Apparently,
Because
Xbox's system would have let you sell digital games to each other.
again, that would still be like in this weird thing where they're still presumably,
Taking a cut, yeah.
yeah, they're taking a cut or exerting more control over it than would just be through GameStop or whatever. But
Absolutely.
yeah, with Sony and backwards compatibility, like I think it it would be insane if they didn't continue having compatibility with at least PS4 and PS5. But again, nothing's been announced as far as I'm aware, so
And they just went
I
radio
think
silent for almost a week.
anything's possible at this point. Maybe if for whatever reason they can cut costs somehow by not including any form of backwards compatibility and just starting fresh with PS6, I guess they could do that. I don't think it would be smart of them to do that, but we still don't know.
I don't
That's
know
that's
how
the main thing.
I don't know how much they can actually cut in terms of bill of materials because
No, I don't think
I saw from Kepler
that,
L2 back in March that it costs around $760 to manufacture one unit of the upcoming console. So they're already deep
yeah,
into manufacturing on it, which means that hardware-wise, they can't really change all that much. Not like what's
yeah,
happening with Helix. And so now it has risen by $200, which
yep.
means that this PS6 is almost certainly going to cost more than $1,000. I wonder what they might do to try and address that. Like saying, well, actually, no new controller this gen. Because maybe that's fine. Maybe they don't need to reinvent the wheel so much every time. Maybe it should be just a PSP to PSP2 situation instead of trying to force all this innovation and call it the Vita. I
Yeah.
read another article about that from Sean Layden, who was reflecting on that. Also, it has to be said, these are companies worth billions of dollars. They do not need to have every sector growing in profit every quarter. Infinite growth is not sustainable. Where are the rational investors who are fine with steady, predictable returns, or fine with the understanding that video games are a creative business where you cannot just assembly line art?
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen at Microsoft because, of course, they decided to use this as cover to do the layoffs now. And it's pretty
Yeah.
bad across several places.
Yeah. I mean, literally the only silver lining is that company wise, the companies that they are letting go are at least not being shut down. That's like the one thing where I'm like, okay, Double Fine, Compulsion, Ninja Theory, they're at least safe.
Yeah, they would shut those places down, especially Compulsion. I would have gone on a fucking tirade.
A hardcore audience, particularly like Double Fine, is beloved enough. If Double Fine does go under at some point, they don't want it to be under their watch, like, let them go. And they must have something close to ready to announce, I would have to think, because the main team has not put out anything since Psychonauts 2. They've had Keeper and Kiln out, but those were much smaller teams within Double Fine that had been incubating those during Psychonauts 2 development. So I wonder, the main Tim Schafer team, I feel like, just has to have something close to ready by now.
Yeah, otherwise they wouldn't survive for very long as an independent company again.
If I ever do rewatch the 20-hour Psychonauts 2 documentary, that is
Thanks for reminding me. I never finished that.
Yeah, that is like one of the best looks at just behind the curtains of game development you'll ever get, because it is literally from day one until the release party. And you get to see all of the ups and downs of it, including both the pandemic happening and the purchase by Microsoft happening. It's crazy to me how any game ever gets out the door.
Seriously.
I said this before, but Double Fine was one of the least bad purchases Microsoft made. They seemed like they were in pretty dire straits trying to get Psychonauts 2 out the door. I think Microsoft was a net positive for like making that game what it was in the final like year and a half of development. So they were having trouble getting enough funding to finish the game before Microsoft swooped in. I think there's a world where Psychonauts 2 either comes out very underbaked, or something dire happens with Double Fine in terms of their existence as a company if Microsoft doesn't swoop in and buy them. Not to say that Microsoft was a perfect steward of them, but I think things could have gone a lot worse for Double Fine. And that's the one purchase that I think, if we're looking back at the long view of all of these purchases Microsoft has made, that's one that I looked at when it happened, and I was like, okay, Double Fine is like okay for a while.
And as you know, I have a lot of emotional attachment to Compulsion Games. That's where I'm really worried, because their IP, at least they're keeping that of Contrast, We Happy Few, and South of Midnight. The problem is those IPs have not really had the time to establish themselves the way that Double Fine has. So I'm much more worried about them going under as an independent company, unless they hopefully have some smaller spin-offs ready to go, because South of Midnight has a decent fan base.
Yeah.
I could see like a top-down action RPG that's a similar style shift to between Lost in Random and Lost in Random's dumb top-down action RPG that I didn't really play all that much of. Doesn't mean that that's gonna necessarily work out perfectly for them, but I hope they do will. And the couple of studios that found buyers probably would not have by themselves. In terms of Ninja Theory and their motion capture technology, which is interesting because I feel like Microsoft would have wanted to keep that somehow, or just like exclusively license it. But Undeadlabs has gone so many years without a new game.
I know, it's wild. Like, I think they're running like some sort of closed beta for State of Decay 3, like as this is happening too, which is crazy. It's like, if the game's far enough along to have a beta, why not just keep them around and let them get the thing out the door?
I think it's a closed alpha.
Okay, yeah, some sort of test that's still invite only, but far enough along where I can't imagine this game's more than like a year and a half away at this point.
It has more wish lists than Halocampaignevolved on Steam. So there's clearly a fan base for this.
I mean, maybe like development's been more trouble behind the scenes because it has been 8 years since State of Decay 2.
Oh gosh, wow.
So I can imagine maybe like they're looking at this and saying, okay, we're not just going to sink more costs into this and let it go for another 2 years. We'll let someone else incur those costs, and we'll still have the game on our platform at the end of the day. I don't know.
You're worth $1 trillion. Spent $80 billion on AI and $70 billion on Activision, and now you're going to cut costs. Like, fuck you, Microsoft, to some degree.
The thing is that was made under different circumstances in a different regime. I'm not saying, I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying like this regime, I mean, especially, Ashasharma, I think the first thing everyone thinks you bring in this outsider, and it's like, okay, well, you're bringing in someone who's not close so that they can make these cuts. I have to imagine that's part of why she was chosen, was like, okay,
Oh, that has to
we need
be.
we need we need someone. I mean, that's like the natural first thought, in my opinion. Like that was the first thing, was like, okay, well, they're talking about all this stuff about resetting stuff. The, naive optimist says like, okay, hopefully this doesn't mean layoffs. Hopefully they're just using all this flowery language, whatever, for whatever reason. But of course, at the end of the day, of course, it's going to mean layoffs, and that's,
But why does it
after all those internal memos and all those letters. Well, because either I would say either they're slimming down to spin Xbox off to someone else, or just to make it more justifiable to keep around. I don't know.
That would make sense, especially with those weird moves with like placing Halo under Activision or something like that.
Yeah, well, that stuff hasn't really. I mean, that's still like just buzz around, so who knows if that'll happen. But
yeah,
like the things that have been done and are publicly known at this point, I think the only two things that come to mind for me are, it's either because they want to just keep the most attractive things around and not be this bloated mess to sell off, or they just need to like do whatever to keep the lights on,
Speaking of
Yeah,
keeping the lights on, the Works Council stuff in the case of Arkane is very interesting because this is called a Comité Social et Économique,
Mhm.
which is the Unified Works Council in France, and is a legally mandated employee representative body that ensures workers are informed, consulted, and represented in workplace decisions. Because
Yep.
right now, for pretty much everywhere else, because there's not these legal protections, it's a dictatorship. And you can't even put up a memorial to your fallen colleagues at
I
Bethesda's
saw that.
Rockville office.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that bullshit? Like, I get that speech is heavily restricted at work. There should be some way for Bethesda developers to speak out against this somehow. Because not being allowed to at work just pushes down all the resentment. How
Yeah.
are you going to get high quality games exactly with so many people having lost morale and thinking that their jobs are not safe? Because I'll tell
Yeah.
you what it feels like. It feels like opening a computer every day to find absolutely no purpose. None. Uh, and then having to make that elsewhere, which is not impossible, but is just very exhausting to do every day for a year and a half while you're feeling like you're dangled by a thread.
Mhm.
And all this bullshit with Wahid Azal pleading for me to die already. He literally said that and is like, well, you're not going to catch me for that. Haha, I didn't actually technically threaten to kill you. But so stupid. Though
Yeah.
I will fucking punish him for all of it. But that's not anything right now because I basically just ping pong with my abuser without even looking really. Because he's just such an idiot who constantly repeats these stupid circular arguments about me being a child rapist and convicted of crimes. And I'm like, well, then prove it.
Mhm.
You, the public records are searchable. Prove it. But I digress. The point is that feeling shadowed by someone who wants you gone, not fun at all. And so
Yeah.
it's nice that at least in France they have protections. At least in the EU, there might be some competition to PlayStation. Land of the free, though, just gonna have to take what you can get and not get upset. Because I did the calculations. This RAM crisis is really bad. If I had wanted to buy the 3 terabytes of storage that I did alongside my mini PC, it was around $750 after taxes in the fall. I would have paid $1,200. Now, you could say, well, I'll just not buy the 2 terabytes of storage for 300. for almost $300, which is insane. And to the extra 1 terabyte and the onboard 512 gigabyte, because they could absolutely cut the storage size on the PS6 and Helix, because they figure, oh, people have their expansion cards or SSDs from the PS5 and can bring those over, or you know what, tough, that's a cost we're passing on to the consumer.
Yeah.
But at one point, do people just say enough and the entire console industry as we know it collapses?
I think that's going to be the launch of these next systems. Like if they can't get the price down and they can't make it an attractive enough thing, then I think that's a really dicey proposition for both of them in different ways. Like for Microsoft, I think it's more existential. For Sony, I think if the PS6 sells, half to a third of what the PS5 is selling, that's pretty bad for them. But I think they can weather that a little better. If Microsoft comes out with their Helix and it totally bombs the market, I don't know what they do after that. Like that's more of an unknown to me.
I don't
Or
think
like,
it's very existential for them. They'll just do what they've been wanting to for so long and
yeah, I
just
mean,
go multi-plat.
Yeah, so I think that's probably what they'll do. But the question is, like, will Microsoft, the larger company, what will they want to do? Like, will they
yeah, will they spin off
find it
Xbox?
palatable? Like, not necessarily. Like, I think Xbox will continue to exist. Will it continue to exist in the way that it does? I don't think so. If Helix doesn't, like, if they're expecting, like, I just don't know what they're expecting from Helix, because like their past two consoles have been on a downward trend. Even though Series X had a strong launch, it's really tailed off.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that they, like, if they're expecting an improvement over that in the current market conditions, they are delusional. And same with Sony. Like, if they're expecting better sales in the PS5 at, nearly twice the price, probably, and a lot of people feeling like, I don't necessarily feel this way, but a lot of people do feel like they haven't really gotten enough use out of their current consoles. I just don't know where that leaves either of them in terms of like making a marketable product.
I've really gotten a lot of use out of my Xbox, but that's mainly for the quality of life features.
People say like, oh, there's nothing to play on the console. It's like there's plenty to play. If you prefer playing on PC, you can play there. But I don't understand a lot of people that have bought consoles in the past 5 or 6 years and said there's nothing to play on them. It's like, well, if you have a PC,
well,
sure.
I think what they mean by that is there's not games that are huge wow factors for the console that are like, this is when next generation has become current generation.
And I think a lot
that
of
moment
that
has arrived. I've been playing quite a bit of 007 First Light, for instance, and I'm still blown away by that game's graphics.
I think we're just stuck in this like almost permanent cross-gen period where, like, yes, there are games coming out that are exclusive to the current gen machines, but it's way less than it used to be. Like the proportions are way off from what they used to be. So like for as many of those that are coming out, like there's still plenty of games still coming out on the machines that were made 13 years ago.
It'll be an even longer cross-gen period, in my opinion, for current gen to next gen, just because the CPUs and GPUs of these machines are so much stronger than the leap from PS4 and Xbox One. However, that also means that the GPU and CPU situation is not going to be as much of a leap, so it's a double-edged sword.
Like, the thing is, the next machines are not, like you said, going to be as big of a leap. I think that much has been made evident, just even ignoring like whatever cost increases there have been over the past several
Moore's
years.
Law.
Yeah, like just the nature of computing, unless there hasn't been like a huge breakthrough. I think the most that we'll get like dedicated ray tracing, more than what we have.
Stronger hardware ray tracing.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that's come a long way in the past 5 years. The current consoles launch just slightly too late to like pick up that wave, and it's gotten like a lot of the newer cards and stuff.
Do you mean early? Because if ray tracing,
they were, yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, they were too early to catch. Like if if the specs had been finalized maybe a year later, maybe they would have been able to include more. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda, huh?
Yeah. So I think, and there is a little bit more of that with the PS5 Pro. And again, you have stuff like PSSR, like all the DLSS like offerings that I
Secret
think
sauces
and
and
Switch 2
upscaling.
also has some of that built in. I think that's something that just the PS5 and Xbox Series were a little too early to really get proper support in there. So I definitely think there will be upgrades to the new machines. It's just a matter of pitching that to a mass audience. Like someone like me, I think even with $1,000 price point, I will get one of the machines, probably Helix. If they're both $1,000, I'm not getting them both. And
Huh.
because my library is just Xbox centric, like that's just where I have most of my digital library the past 20 years. That's
Yeah.
the main reason why I would go Helix first. But if somehow by some miracle both machines launch at like 800, I could maybe see myself springing for both of those just because, like, I mean, gaming is like the one hobby I spend much money on at all. So it's
Hmm.
like, it'll suck. And I'd rather not have to pay those prices, but it's kind of like, well, it's not ideal, but whatever. It's not something I'm looking forward to. But at the same time, I am still capable of being excited by new hardware. Like, and I've already mentally braced myself for whatever the price point's going to be, unless they manage to surprise me and the ceiling only gets higher on that as the next year and a half to 2 years goes on, whenever they decide to actually pull the trigger and launch. Like, if we're talking 1,000 for each, there's a huge sticker shock to that, but I think that's something I can get used to. Unfortunately, I don't want to have to get used to it, but it is what it is. It sucks, but whatever.
Or maybe our wages will magically keep up with inflation in 2 years and everything will be
Yeah.
fine and the $1,000 will feel like nothing. No.
Yeah.
Ha! No. Okay, so it was magical to be in line for the Xbox Series X at launch for the first and last time ever. Unfortunately, I just have too many other expenses to be spending $1,000 plus on new consoles at the drop of a hat. I will see how the Xbox and PC modes interact with each other, because if it would be nice to just have one instead of threading everything through the Xbox to the PC and all the technical issues that come with that. Still, stupid Xbox Party app on PC.
Mhm.
How the games from the PC side are, how easy the games from the PC side are to play on Xbox, and how backwards compatibility is handled. Because it would be amazing if they really did bring in all your games, including by saying, hey, that external disk drive you already have around, you can bring it and you can collect games still.
Yeah.
Do I really feel upset about new games being digital only in a hypothetical situation where Microsoft says that is, which is probably going to happen? But let's just say, for sake of argument, it does. Well, most of the physical games that I get when I do get them are Nintendo ones, and they hold their value better anyway. But I am glad I got Assassin's Creed Resynced as a resellable license, even
Mhm.
if it requires an online download in order to finish the game, and even if it requires an online connection for some reason. I think after, at least 007 makes it very plain that you can play the game offline. But the problem is that I'm pretty sure that they also handle the save system for First Light Online, and that set me back by several minutes of progress. I don't know what exactly the problem was, and it probably wasn't even an online thing. But every time it's doing a little save, I think some of those are being saved to the server, and some are not. It's a little confusing how all that works. But it was a particularly annoying section where I was fighting 3 guys, or I was fighting 3 waves of people, and one of them was 2 fighters, and they kept kicking my butt because the combat system, there's definitely a flow that you can get into with it, but it's still super clunky, and I don't think that'll ever change. Fortunately, the rest of the systems are really good with that game, and I'm still really enjoying it a lot. And now I can delve into my backlog. Either way, I probably should be doing that a lot more anyway, because I have 2,664 games on Xbox. I think I have
a lot.
I think I have a lot to play, and a
that's
couple
the thing where,
hundred
like,
on Switch and Steam.
a lot of people are talking about us being in a slow motion crash, and I think I've said this before as well, but like, you know, like whatever happens with video games, like even as they're talking about like, oh, younger generations aren't really into they're into games in a different way. They're more into like mobile or free to play. Like I have so much to go back and either replay or play for the first time. Like I don't think I'll have enough time in my lifetime to like play nearly everything I want to play. So like I'm sure it's okay to be worried about the future of an industry that you love or whatever, but like I don't know, if literally all new games stop being produced today, I would be like sad about it and then go, okay, well, I have 50 years worth of games to play. That's fine.
What it really just means is that the big AAA players are not going to be dominant forever. So it's going to be a mini crash because these budgets are out of control, and either there's a retreat or just entire studios, entire publishing conglomerates explode and are bought up by a bunch of other companies, THQ style. That's probably more likely. A full crash was only really possible at the time because Atari was the video game market for a lot of
like
people, and people thought, oh, well, these stupid video game consoles are useless compared to my computer that plays games and does other things. So it's not like this is new.
A lot of the things that are talked about with the 1983 crash are talked from a very US centric perspective where
oh, absolutely.
like yes, other regions were affected by it as well. It wasn't as global to my understanding. Like Nintendo launched the Famicom in 1980. Like
yeah, in 1983 in Japan.
Exactly. So the Japanese gaming market was not feeling it the same way that the US gaming market was. Same with like the European gaming market, because like there were a lot more small scale developers working on PC and stuff.
That was because the game, for those who don't know, the games that were being made for them were being made on cassette. So they were a lot cheaper to make than bespoke cartridges, especially for the wildly popular ZX Spectrum, which was created by Sinclair Research in 1982 and is where Ultimate Play the Game eventually became Rare. And that leaves me with dread too, because who knows how long they'll be safe, but maybe the Sea of Thieves movie will do well.
We'll see. I mean, it would make me feel a lot better if Rare had anything else announced, or like, I don't know, because it definitely feels like Sea of Thieves is on like a wind down period, where sure they're still doing things with it. They must have other teams working on.
Oh, by the way, you should vote to lower Emissary.
Yep, I'm on it. I do just hope Rare has something else in the hopper in the next couple years that will justify their continued existence to Microsoft. Because like I'm sure Sea of Thieves is still paying the bills somewhat. Like I think the game is still doing fairly well. Like maybe not the barn burner that it was in the first few years, but it's still hanging in there. They're still, putting out season passes and new cosmetics and stuff.
Yeah, it's not an id situation. Poor id.
Yeah, the craziest thing about the id thing is a lot of the people they laid off were like the people in charge of maintaining id tech. Like it's one of the
they just reduced people to a support staff basically for the engine. So what are you doing?
I heard a lot of the people who were knowledgeable about the engine are being laid off too. It's like you're losing like a lot of things that can't just be accounted for in a spreadsheet. You're losing just like institutional knowledge by doing that. Where like
Absolutely.
you're making this one studio that has this really viable, from what I hear, a very performant engine in id Tech, and you're like, okay, well, you guys are gonna use Unreal now. Like,
Wait, what?
I
No, I heard that IdTech is still going to be a going concern. It's just that it probably
well,
won't be
yeah,
widely used as much.
but that's just crazy to me. Like, to
Well, I think that they
I don't
were
know, the
offering it
things
to
that
other
I read.
people, and that might be scaled back, is what I'm
I
saying.
mean, sure, yeah, I just don't understand that angle of like,
Well, I don't understand that angle, period, of cutting id specifically, because every studio is being collectively punished for the fact that Minecraft carried them for a few years. Big deal! This is what happens in a business. You move money to help support units that are not as profitable. And you are in a
yeah,
business where you inherently have to, or at least in the old model before this apocalypse, uh, but where you have to take some losses on the hardware in order to get people into the games. That's literally the concession model. A video about owning a movie theater chain was talking about exactly that, because that's how the console business has worked this entire time. And if you're just going to make everything expensive and everything digital, then why not just go to Steam? If it is all digital in the future, then I wait for sales all the time. There's
yeah,
no reason to be pre-ordering anything uh, other than premium access packs via Game Pass. And well, if my Helix is powerful enough and the games we want to play, like Sea of Thieves, are on Steam, then I may not keep Game Pass with Helix, which would be a nightmare scenario for them because they wanted to sidestep the problem of not having enough games for their platform by opening it up. But by opening it up, that means you have to make a profit on the hardware.
yeah,
And that's just the frustrating part, because this has happened. It's just that Xbox is not making as much of a profit. We're unhealthy because of 3% margins? Really? Sega was putting their heart and soul into the Dreamcast until the very end. Like, why can't companies be like that more? That's what I'm
yeah,
frustrated about. But, at least we can experience nostalgic classics remastered, like Halo Campaign Evolved. I pre ordered the 5-day early access option so that we can play
yeah.
it when it launches in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, but I definitely plan to. So
Okay,
I'll be
so
on early access.
we'll be there on or shortly after launch night for
I
Halo
probably won't be.
Campaign
I
Evolved.
probably won't be there on launch night because I think it's the 23rd, like 2 weeks from now. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to be in New York that day, so I probably won't be on that night. But
Well, that's
soon
why I
after.
said around.
Yeah,
um so like maybe that Friday or Saturday, I guess. Either way
yeah,
works for me. But
yeah. We'll see.
whenever we are on to talk about Halo Campaign Evolved, we'll be sure to do it right here on SunnyRedemption Sailing, your bi-weekly-ish voyage for BS3 gaming news. Y'all have a good one.
All right, later. See you.
Bye-bye.